Stay with us. There's a lot more coming up tonight here on Ghana Tonight. Let's settle for Ghana Briefs. The National Communications Authority has denied claims of a breach of the country's SIM database in spite of reports of multiple SIM registrations with the Ghana cards of unsuspecting citizens. At a news conference, Director General of the authority, Joe Anoche, gave an assurance that there has not been any unauthorized access.
We wish to assure the general public that the SIM database has not been breached. They identify abuses of stage 1 process which have been resolved do not amount to unauthorized access to the SIM registration database.
Over 34,000 voters from 75 polling stations will on May 23 go to the polls in Kumawu to replace former Member of Parliament Philip Baswa, who died on March 27. Already, 4 political parties, namely the ruling NPP, the NDC, CPP, and an independent candidate, have all announced their readiness to battle for the seat. Ashanti Regional Director of the Electoral Commission, Benjamin Bano-Bio, entreated candidates to ensure they have requisite proof to support their eligibility.
Anyone who wants to contest should be a registered voter. It is not limited to the constituency, but should be a registered voter in the country. Then you should either hail from that place or have stayed there for not less than 2 years preceding the last general election.
Caterers in charge of the school feeding program have declared a nationwide strike. Leaders of the caterers say members are not returning to the kitchen until government responds to their concerns. The caterers have been off duty, pressing home settlement of arrears and an upward adjustment of feeding grant from 97 pesos to 3 cedis per pupil.
We have Greater Accra, we have Volta region, we have some of them from northern regions, and then the eastern region. They are all here. All the representatives came. So we are collectively the whole Ghana. We cannot go and borrow to come and cook for the children for free. We are fed up. We want our money.
Renowned evangelist Reverend Dr. Lawrence Tete has condemned the alarming rate of corruption and illegal mining in the country, calling for a collective effort, change of attitude, and God's intervention. He admonished leaders to desist from seeking their selfish interest, but rather the well-being of Ghanaians. He made the observation at the launch of this year's National Prayer and Healing Rally on the theme, "This Nonsense Must Stop."
And stopping galamsey has nothing to do with government alone. It has to do with us too, the communities, political leaders, security services, our traditional rulers, our services, and indeed every Ghanaian has the right to stop this menace.
Government has reduced its tree planting target from 20 million to 10 million this year. There's been a decline in the tree survival rate from 80% in 2021 to 72% last year. According to the Lands and Natural Resources Minister, Samuel Abojinapo, several factors accounted for government's failure to meet last year's target.
So far, field assessment report shows that, on the average, we had 72% survival rate last year, as compared to 81% in 2021.
Green Ghana Day will help.
We composed a cabinet of very responsible Ghanaians, headed by a very renowned, eminent figure in our country, Professor Kwabena Frimpong Boateng. And they are the ones who then designed a program for us of what we needed to do to try and arrest the menace and preserve our heritage. In the course of it, Professor Frimpong Boateng goes on to a meeting, a conference in Abidjan, and there the Ivorian leaders tell him, you people are not helping us. This illegal mining that is taking place in Ghana is beginning to affect us, our water bodies and our space in Côte d'Ivoire. Rivers, waters, even forests, they don't know national boundaries. They run across nations. And there he was, very embarrassed, very apologetic that the activities of Ghanaians is jeopardizing the space of another fellow and neighbor country in our region. That's how serious the matter is.
Well, we agree with the president. That's how serious this matter is. Because when the last tree dies, the last man dies. And it is also the case, and indeed true, that water is life. So Galamsey is a threat to our very existence as human beings. Okay, and the president understands the seriousness of the situation, at least with this speech that he gave in 2017. Every time we've played this video, we focus on where the president said he will put his presidency on the line. But in there, what I just played to you, you heard him mention Professor Kwabena Frimpong Boateng, and he amplified quite clearly the credibility of the man whose report is under my microscope tonight. And many, many, many of you who have also been talking about it. You see, so the credibility of the witness, in this case, Professor Frimpong Boateng, in this matter cannot be discounted, especially because the president himself has mentioned it. So for the only action we've seen to give effect to the leaked report is this petition by Nelson Rox in Dafia, because that's what we've seen so far to Shraj, to investigate the details of the report. So we ask you, members of the general public, the confidence that you have in Shraj's work on this matter. This is the result of the poll that we put out, okay? And this was almost 24 hours. Which institution can better investigate Professor Frimpong Boateng? When we put out Shraj, and many of you also now endorse the setup of an independent commission of inquiry, okay? Because both on Twitter and Facebook, a number of the respondents say you would rather go for an independent commission of inquiry, whereas lesser of you would want to go in for Shraj. But you see, the Shraj boss, Joseph Vital, who spoke to us yesterday, assured that they would do a good job. So we'll all have to support them on this particular issue and ensure that Shraj does a good job on this. But Professor Frimpong Boateng's report mentions the company, that's CNG Alaska, one of the many mining companies in that 36-page report. Now, this is it. But I have a copy of a letter, that's what you see there, written by Dr. Tony Obin, who was CEO of the Minerals Commission between 2014 and 2016 on the activities of CNG Alaska in the Djuabo area. Now, take a look at this. And this letter is dated 29th November 2016. The mining operations of CNG Alaska Minerals Commission, you see the stamp there. And the details of it essentially is that it had at the time come to the notice of the Minerals Commission that CNG Alaska is seriously, and these are the words of the letter, seriously engaged in illegal mining on its prospecting license located at Djuabo in the Western region. As you may be aware, the terms of prospecting license do not permit your company to engage in any form of extraction on the concession. So the Minerals Commission essentially said they had commenced investigations into the alleged illegal mining within the license area and informing the company to cease all forms of operations, including prospecting and extracting of mining, any form of activity there. So this is the letter from Dr. Tony Obin, okay? And this was in 2016, November 29. Remember, this was just a few days before election 2020. Sorry, election 2016, I beg your pardon. It's election 2016. We'll learn later what happens after this particular letter. Stay with me. Dr. Tony Obin is going to be joining us on Ghana Tonight to speak to this particular letter and the wording in there that this company was seriously engaged in illegal mining. But bear in mind, this same company that the late Major Maxwell Mahama was then Captain Mahama, was a commander of the team of military personnel deployed to protect the mining concession belonging to this same company. And look, not to remind anybody of our loss, but may his soul continue to rest in perfect peace. But it raises fundamental questions that issues have come up relating to this said company. There's no relationship between this particular letter and the operations at that particular area where the sad incident happened. But that's the first time many people heard of this company. There's something else that I want to show you. This is the mining licensing framework that we have in this country. First, you get an entry permit from the Forestry Commission, the reconnaissance license, prospecting license, mining lease. The EPA comes in to do what the environmental permits that details the environmental impact of what you intend to do. Stay with me. We'll understand really what the license regime of this country really entails, as we've seen now, and the details that we have on this simple graph, and what a mining company is allowed to do with a prospecting license when Dr. Tony Obin joins us. Also, Dr. Henry Kokofu, who is the Executive Director of the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, will be joining us, because right after this quick break, stay with me, coming up, we have the details of that exclusive, the letters that the late Sir John wrote to 47 companies, giving them entry permit to a number of forest reserves in this country. Stay with us. We'll get into that exclusively here on Ghana Tonight. We'll be back shortly after this quick break.
I want to assure him and all of you that Akonta Mining is not engaged in any illegal mining anywhere in Ghana as we speak. Further, the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources has, through the agency of the Forestry Commission, with the assistance of the military, made the effort to cordon off all 294 sites of forest reserves in the country and rid them of illegal mining as we speak. I want to assure him and all of you that Akonta Mining is not engaged in any illegal mining anywhere in Ghana as we speak. Further, the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources has, through the agency of the Forestry Commission, with the assistance of the military, made the effort to cordon off all 294 sites of forest reserves in the country and rid them of illegal mining as we speak.
Remember, this statement was made in January, in the early part of this year, okay, when the president met some that's chiefs, and then this renewed fight or the commitment to fight illegal mining in this country was made. So in 2023, the president made that statement about now all forest reserves being cordoned off. So there's no mining going on in forest reserves as we speak. So it's after the Akonta Mining issue. And bear in mind, Akonta Mining had their own issues related to some of the concerns that we raised, okay? This is the Akonta Mining case. This is the Forestry Commission's letter on the Akonta Mining matter. Take a look. This specifically talks about the entry permit in the Tano Nimiri forest. Remember, this came up when the Chief Executive Officer of the Minerals Commission on August 8, 2022, John Alote, that's his signature there, indicating that on the issue of the request from Akonta Mining requesting forest entry permit to enable the company conduct prospecting activities in the Tano Nimiri Forest Reserve. This is a forest, take note of that name, Tano Nimiri Forest Reserve in the Asenkregwa Forest District. Okay, so that was what the president was responding to. Well, after this 36-page report by Professor Kwabena Frimpong Boateng was leaked, there was one aspect of the report that Professor Frimpong Boateng talks about certain forest reserves being given to, or mining companies being given access to forest reserves to prospect. This is the part of the report. It says, through Charles Owusu, the Director of Operations at the Forestry Commission, Sir John, the late, had Chinese gangs doing mining on his behalf. The issue about rosewood exploitation is something that is beyond the scope of this report. It says he remembers that at a meeting in the conference room of the president, he told the president in the presence of Sir John that he is the greatest danger to the forests of Ghana. That's Professor Kwabena Frimpong Boateng. Here's what we've got. A number of letters and indeed concerns that the EPA raised between 2018 and 2019, the number of entry permits that were given by the Forestry Commission to certain companies. My colleague Dennis Wedam has exclusive detail of these documents that we've secured. Dennis, first off, let's start off with the EPA's concerns, okay? What did the EPA say about the number of entry permits between 2018 and 2019 that were given by the Forestry Commission to companies, mining companies, to enter forest reserves in this country?
Well, so the EPA raised on red flags. This sought to suggest that it was alarming the number of requests they were getting with respect to mining companies that were given permits entry into forest reserves. They admitted that even though it was allowed in law, within a certain remit for companies to mine within forest reserves, the numbers that were coming to them were too many. And in their view, something ought to be done. In all, so this is a correspondence that I have before me, a correspondence between a mining company and then the EPA. This mining company had got entry permits. It had got the prospecting licenses. It needed the impact assessment, the impact assessment permit from the EPA. And then in the correspondence, the EPA was forced to state its position on this particular issue.
Right.
This is dated This is dated February 20, 2019, but the request was made somewhere in June 2018. Now, the EPA having been forced to state its position on this matter, like explained, and if you permit me, there's a part of it that reads, and I think that's what is projected
on the screen there.
On the screen, yes, where the EPA talks about a growing concern in the upsurge in the numbers of the forest entry permits used by the Forestry Commission. And it goes on and on, talking about 47. And now this 47 number, it rings a bell. Considering where we started this conversation from on Thursday, if you remember Prof's original document, which just took this whole conversation, he talks about the major challenges he had dealing with or working as the chair of the Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining.
That's right.
One of the key things he indicated was the fact that all the 47 forest reserves were given out to mining companies, either to do prospecting or we're giving prospecting license or recognizance license. So this is testament to the fact that indeed there were these kind of issues happening in there. It doesn't just end there. Now there was an attachment of a list of all the mining companies that were operating in these forest reserves. So they give you a column of the name of the company, a name of the forest reserve, the location of the forest reserve, the date of issue, and the date of expiry of the permit that was given. In some instances, and if you read that document carefully, there's a part where some of the entry permits were even given far beyond the allowable space. So if they were supposed to be given for just 1 year, there are instances where they were given for a 3-year period.
I see.
And that was alarming for the EPA.
And indeed, that's the details that you see there. And we're providing, this is a page in a document that the EPA wrote, correct?
Yes.
The EPA, is it a letter or a document they wrote to the Forestry Commission?
It's a memo.
It's a memo.
Yes.
They wrote to the Forestry Commission.
Exactly.
I see. And the details
and
of
the subject of the memo was position of the agency. Agency in here refers to the Environmental Protection Agency on proposed exploration activities in forest reserves. And that's the extract that we are reading there. So supposedly to state its position that this issue of mining in forest reserves or prospecting or exploration in forest reserves is becoming too alarming and that it needs to be looked at.
I see. And they say since February 2018 to date, a total of 47 copies of such forest entry permits have been received by the agency. And they attach the list.
Yes.
And that's the list we have, correct?
Yes.
Great. And in addition, one of these permits has been issued for a 3-year period, as opposed to the previous term of 1 year. So they flagged something there that it's gone beyond even the allowable period of 1 year. They have 3 years. The agency has also received a renewed forest entry permit with the same 3-year validity period. And it continues that in view of the environment sensitivity of these forest reserves and in the light of illegal full-scale mining operations being clandestinely undertaking in some forest reserves under the guise of prospecting, it is critical that the agency carefully considers this phenomenon to shape its decision on this issue. Remember this part, Professor Kwabena Frimpong-Boateng raised a concern in his report that there were some mining companies that have been given prospecting licenses, but they were actually mining.
Yeah.
And this, the EPA corroborates in this memo.
Exactly.
That per their own investigations, there are companies mining with prospecting licenses.
Sure.
Correct? That's the EPA's
That's what
report.
the EPA is saying. And when you look through the correspondence between the EPA and then the Forestry Commission on this matter, it is very obvious. And this generally has been a point of dispute as to whether companies with prospecting licenses are actually mining or they are doing prospecting. And those are some of the issues that have been raised in there. And Alfred, let me also add that beyond this document that we have, there's another document that is well over 120 pages, and that document contains all the permits that have been given to these companies. So
I see.
So the permit is more like a template. So I don't know if you can show that.
We're going to run, we'll just pull that through.
Yes.
Yes.
So when you look at it, it's just the same template. The only thing that differs is the name of the company and the dates. So it clearly spells out what you are allowed to do with the entry permits and what you are not supposed to do, and then with the fee that you are supposed to pay. And the fee payable, it's 500,000 per annum.
500,000 per annum.
Yeah.
Can you run through the names of these the companies that were captured between 2018 and 2019?
Okay.
So the details of this letter that we have is dated between 2018 and 2019.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So
and these are
Almingo Mining Resources Limited.
Okay.
Almingo Mining Resources Limited.
Almingo Mining.
And they were in the forest reserve of Kwaminsa. It is in the Ofenso municipality in the Ashanti region. And the date of issue was on the 14th of February 2018. And the date of expiry was 14th of February 2019. So that was for a 1-year period.
Okay.
You have Almingo again. They are also in Krokosua Hill. That is Dwabosu in the Ashanti region.
Right.
They also have their span between 14th of February 2018 to 14th of February 2019. The same Almingo again, somewhere in the Asinanyo, and that's also it's somewhere in the Ashanti region, spanning from 21st of March 2018 to 31st of December 2018. It runs through all up to the 47th company. 47th forest reserve, because mind you, some of the companies are in more than one forest reserve. Like I just mentioned, for the first 3, for instance, they operate in more than 3 forest reserves. So let's try and see if you can open that document just for the benefit of our viewers.
Indeed.
So that we can just run through it quickly together.
It's going to come up shortly. So this is it, right?
Yes.
This is it.
Exactly.
Okay, there you have it. So we'll try and pull it through, and yes.
But in this document too, there are also some familiar names that we have come across before.
Okay.
So names like Heritage Imperial Company Limited, which has been spoken about lately, widely. So, okay. So move up.
Yes, so this is it.
Right.
These are the companies, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. And we have, so you've talked about Armingo. And they have, Armingo has, according to this report, between 2018, that's within the period of 2018, they were giving entry permit into what? 3 forest reserves.
Let's be sure that's not all, because the list still continues.
It continues? I see. So Armingo is not mentioned anywhere else.
Okay, there's Armingo Steel Mining Resources.
Steel Mining Resources. That's
quite different from this one, number 37.
Interesting stuff. I see.
But let's just run through the list.
Okay, please. We have the fourth one is what? Armsfield
Company Limited. We have DML Investments. We have King's Pep Mining Company Limited.
That's in the Odan River.
Odan River. That is repeated again. I mean, it's repeated. Then we have Heritage Imperial Company Limited.
Heritage, that
also has been, repeated. Volta Gilters Company Limited.
Okay.
That too has been repeated. We have Faso Multi Services Limited. That's been repeated. Roth Ventures Limited. That is also in there.
That's in the Odan. Roth has 2. That's Odan River and then Tano.
Yes, so it means that in the Odan River alone, you have, at least so far, there are 2 of them in there already. I mean, there are 2 different companies.
2 different companies
that have concessions in that particular reserve.
So we see the King's Pep, and then Rothel.
Yes.
Okay. And the Armsfield is in the Biat Toya area. Armingo has Asenanyo, Krokosua Hill, and then Kwamesa. Then what about Faso? Faso is also repeated twice.
Yes.
They have 2. They had 2 forest entry permits in 2018.
Yeah. One in the Western region and one in the Ashanti region. One, the date of issue was not indicated. In the other one, it was indicated as 9th of April 2018 to the 1st of December 2018.
And remember, for our viewers, all these we are mentioning are forest reserves. These are forest reserves that entry permits were given to mining companies to get into those forest reserves. Stay with us. We'll establish whether it is wrong to have been giving, or these forest, that's mining companies been giving these entry permits to forest reserves. How many forest reserves are allowable to be mined in our laws? We'll establish that shortly. So we have JH Resources. Before that, we see Sky Galaxy Minerals Limited. Dennis?
Yes.
That's 26.
26, yes.
That's
there's
also
Sky Galaxy Limited, yes. There's GH Resources Exploration Ghana Company Limited. There's Kito Mining and Construction Limited. There's Global Elements Mining Limited. There's Ambi Limited. There's Transatlantic Logistics Limited. Heritage Energy Limited. E&J Properties and Trading. Heritage Imperial Company again. Roth Ventures again. Armingo Mining again. North Rock Limited. Geomin Mineral Company Limited. Then we have Cadmos Limited, Sky Galaxy Minerals Limited again, Ashanti Bauxite Limited, Transatlantic Logistics Limited, 21st Century Holdings Limited, Dignos Company Limited. Wow. Alfred, it's important to know that when the EPA was raising this red flag, it drew the attention of the Forestry Commission to what they call the operating guidelines for mineral exploration in forest reserves for selected companies.
Right.
Now, this particular guideline is a policy guideline that was adopted as far back as 2001.
Okay.
And that was supposed to allow some amount of mining in some forest reserves.
Okay.
That even though you're allowed to go into that space, you have to go in there with within a particular framework.
Right, and we'll establish that framework shortly. But it's also instructive to note, Dennis, that you see some of the dates of the issue of this forest entry permits by the Forestry Commission. That was a period that there was a ban, right, on small-scale mining, or that's mining in this country. That 2-year period between 2017 and 2018. Take a look at this. Our main goal had their date of issue when? This is the 14th of February.
Yes.
2018. At that time, there was still a ban. The ban was still in place on small-scale mining in this country, right? So what we've done is that...
So, Alfred, before you go there,
great.
The other issue that was of concern to the EPA was the fact that when you look at all the time allowed for the permit, in almost all the instances, it's 1 year.
True.
But when you look at Heritage Imperial, number 35.
Number 35.
Yes. You would see that the date of issue of the permit was from 12th of November 2018 to 24th of October 2021.
Yeah, that's true.
That's clearly more than a year.
So that's Heritage Imperial. That's
for a period of 3 years. Again, when you look at, I think there was another one that I saw.
Okay, so
immediately that's the one I've been able to point out. So that was one of the concerns the EPA raised on that particular matter of some other companies getting more than the 1 year that was given to almost all the other companies.
Now, Dennis, stay with me on this. And it's good that you establish all of these so that our viewers will understand why this is a concern, and especially the period under review. We have no clear evidence that these companies are still, that is, in these forest reserves, especially because of the statement I played by the president indicating that there is no mining currently going on in forest reserve. This statement he made in January when the Akonta mining issue came up. Okay, let's get some perspective to this. Let's go on to the telephone. Dr. Henry Kokofu is the Executive Director of the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA. They come in quite strongly because some of the documents that we have referred to tonight is from them. Dr. Kokofu, thank you for your time on Ghana Tonight. First of all, I want to find out from you, at what point does the EPA raise red flags about the number of permits that you see being given to companies to get into forest reserves in this country?
Well, let me say good evening to your viewers or listeners. I did not get the import of your question well and properly, but I'll try to answer or explain.
Okay.
The process of getting mining license, whether for prospecting or actual mining license or permit, work with the Minerals Commission of Ghana. Indeed, they have the mandate to regulate the mining of minerals in the country for and on behalf of the government and the people of Ghana.
Right.
So we as Environmental Protection Agency, we are enjoined by law to issue what we call environmental permits to those who have concessions for mining or prospecting of mining of minerals. And we do so when the applicant so applies. So as to how many permits are going out or are being issued, and all that, we do not have control over them. However, we have general jurisdiction over the protection and safeguarding of the entire environment, including both the biophysical and the physical.
Right.
We do scrutinize applicants or applications asking for prospecting, environmental permit for prospecting or going into actual mining before the Minerals Commission can issue out the mining permit. That's the last bit of it. We work closely with Minerals Commission on this slide and also with Water Resources Commission. Our main concern and preposition was on the concerns reached or to be reached on potential environmental degradation or damage when we undertake what we call stakeholder engagement or community participation as we receive such applications. So we do not have control over how many permits to be issued. But we only come in to issue environmental permit when all is said and done.
I think that's clear. But what I want to find out from you is, for the forest reserves, the emphasis is on the forest reserves. What do you take into consideration in, as it were, giving the environmental permit to these mining companies to get in there, even though they have an entry permit from the Forestry Commission?
Well, when it comes to forest reserves, the owner, in quote, is the Forestry Commission. So even though the granting of the mining or mineral prospecting or mining permit read to Minerals Commission, the Forestry Commission will have to convince itself that it is so okay, or it is so good for the company to enter into the forest. So they give them what we call entry permit before they get to it. Our concern again is to see how potential environmental damages will occur, and if any, and always there are many, the mitigating aspects within our schedules. When we give the permits out, we have what we call schedules, the do's and the don'ts. They are all spelled out there. With mining in the forest reserve, the argument has been that is it proper, both economically and environmental management point of view, is it proper to mine in the forest reserve? For about 2 or 3 decades, it was settled by the then government through a policy initiative that said that at least 2% of the forest reserves can be mined, and it will not affect the integrity of the forest estate. That has been a policy that runs through up to today. So the Forestry Commission, through Forestry Service Division, is guided by this particular policy directive. As to the 2% is too much or is necessary or it is even not enough, that one is a matter of discussion.
I see.
By all. So we at EPA, we will always come in when the primary regulators ascertain that it is viable for them to give the applicant or the applicant for a mining concession. You will come in and then look at the environmental aspect through environmental assessment report or impact statement. Then we can prescribe mitigation and all that. There are times we have said no. There are many times EPA has said no, we will not give you the environmental permit. At that point, it is expected that the Minerals Commission permit or the Forestry Commission entry permit then is frozen. You cannot use them when EPA had said no. So basically, that's the situation.
I see. But so if you say the law says, or the law allows 2% of mining to take place in forest reserves, what we are saying here is entry permits given to 47, Dennis, correct? Yes, 47 mining companies to get into all the forest reserves we have in this country. But let me establish this. How many forest reserves do we have in this country? Because we see 47 forest reserves listed in this document that we have.
Well, I do not want to assume they know all. This question must go to the Forestry Commission, particularly through the Forest Service Division.
I see. Well, thank you. But your institution had cause to raise concerns about the number of entry permits the Forestry Commission is giving. So I appreciate your time. But you've confirmed a number of things. That's 2% of mining.
But
Dr. Henry Kokofu heads the Environmental Protection Agency. Dennis.
Yes, Alfred. So when you look at the policy that he just referred to, which talks about the 2%, the guidelines, so if you permit me, I'll read something for you.
Please.
It may even be less than the 2% that we are imagining, because the guidelines clarify that majority of forest reserves are divided into conservation, and by conservation, they mean areas which have been targeted for replanting, production, and by production, they mean where timber extraction is permitted, and protection. That is untouchable areas. Now, it means that the whole forest reserve has been divided into three categories: conversion, production, and then protection. Right. Now, this policy established that a 2% limit on exploration and mining in the production area of the forest. I don't know if you get it.
That's the production area.
So there's a conversion area, there is a production area, and there's a protection area. The 2% is on the production area. So when you look at it on the generality of it, it will not seem like the 2% of all the forest reserve, but 2% of the production bit, which is just 1/3 of the whole forest area. So it's like 2% of 1/3 of it.
I see. That explains why Professor Fufon Boateng raised concerns about
it's a genuine concern.
47 forest entry permits that the Forestry Commission under Sir John Kojo-Free gave to these 47 companies we have just given to you. But let's go on to Zoom. Dr. Tony Obeng is the former Chief Executive Officer of the Minerals Commission. He's joining us. Dr. Tony Obeng, thank you. Now, you saw me earlier make reference to a letter that you signed. That's your signature right there, about the operations of C&J Alaska in the Juabo prospecting area. What exactly, give us a bit more detail about what prompted this letter.
Okay, thank you very much. And, greetings to your viewers. This is one of the operational actions that is taken by the commission, or maybe like by a regulator. At the Minerals Commission, we are required to recommend, for the minister to approve a proposal for licensing for the extraction of mineral resources, or the solid minerals in this country. Now, with respect to this particular case, the company applied for prospecting license, which was granted. Now, once you're given prospecting license, you are not required to mine. What you are required to do, what you can do, is to investigate and see if there is resistance. Allowed to do drilling, you are allowed to do pitting, you are allowed to do trenching, and on rare occasions you may be allowed to do what is called bulk sampling. So not doing any of these, and you are actually over the requirement of your license. So when we got the report, we got wind that mining activities was taking place in the concession that had been granted to C&J Alaska. We sent people to investigate. We sent our staff to go and investigate.
I see.
And when they came back, they confirmed that some illegality was going on. So the company was not following the requirement of the license given, or the lease, the prospecting license given. So obviously we, by the power vested in us as a commission, we could either completely cancel the concession or suspend it, or, as I said, revoke the concession. In this case, we actually suspended them indefinitely until the commission was satisfied that they were going according to the rules of the game. So the purpose of that letter, as you could see, was just to sanction them that they were not following the requirement of the prospecting license granted them. Okay, and therefore, the commission was applying the rules governing the license.
So let me establish this. The wording of this letter is quite instructive. You say that in the first paragraph, you talk about the company, this CNG Alaska, being engaged in your own words, seriously engaged in illegal mining on its prospecting license located at Dwabo in the Western region? Dr. Tony Obeng, so is it the case that when you went in there to investigate, there was the clear establishment that the company was engaged in serious illegal mining, as you put it there?
I mean, we did not anticipate that this thing is going to happen, like this is going to become a controversial issue, but that is a regular thing that every regulator must do. If a recipient of a regulatory license goes against the rules of the license, the appropriate action has to be taken. And in this case, we took the action that you're discussing. We got information. We sent our experts, our staff, to go to the investigation. Confirmed tenants of the license were actually mining. They were not prospecting, they were mining. And at that stage, you were not required to mine, you were required to investigate. And what you could was drilling or pitting or trenching. You can do all three and all that, because in those situations, you are not doing actual mining. But in that case, when our reporters came back, when our investigators came back, they reported that they were mining, and we took the action which every good regulator has to take, and that's what you're talking about now.
So in this instance, because after you raised this concern in November 2016, yes, you were replaced after 2017 when the government that appointed you lost power. Okay. Who has to answer questions about the concerns about the operations of this company at any point after you?
See, the regulator must be able to ask why they had gone back mining and enforce the law. Enforcement would mean either completely revoking their license or, that one of the ways of enforcing it is to completely revoke their license and insist that they leave the place. Under normal circumstances, revocation of licenses, would be the last thing that you do, because you want to encourage the license holder to do the right thing. It is not in the interest of the regulator to say that on just seeing one small thing or one thing that was wrong, you just take the license. That would be a wrong approach. You actually tell the person or the company that you're doing something wrong. Stop and do the right thing. We will not allow you to continue, but stop and do the right thing. If you don't, possibly another letter will follow. Now, that letter should be good enough for you, if you're not too recalcitrant, to go back to the right thing, to do the right things and continue with your business. In this particular case, when they didn't, I'm surprised. I'm very surprised that nobody did anything to them. Nobody said anything. They worked, and even those who initially came to complain, about them, now did not complain again. So it's quite interesting. So I don't have to answer that question. You probably have to ask the commission or the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources, because at the end of the day, the overall responsibility lies with the president, and the president has delegated that to the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources. Let me indicate here that licenses are granted by the minister, acting in the of the president, and that it is not just the ministry or the minister, any minister. It is the minister himself. His deputy cannot even sign licenses, according to the regulation. The chief director cannot sign licenses. It is the minister. That is how important the grant of mineral licenses is so important according to our laws. So if it is not working, if somebody is breaching it the way we are talking about, then the institutions that have that responsibility must be questioned.
Dr. Tony Obeng, thank you. But as you indicated, after this letter, we also don't have any clear evidence of whether they continued in this illegality that you mentioned in this letter that you have, this particular company. So this is something that we would also seek answers from the Minerals Commission on, that after this letter, what happened next. But thank you for that education about who issues the mining licenses. It is the minister. I thank you so much. Dr. Tony Obeng, appreciate it. Former CEO of the Minerals Commission. For viewers, there's a lot in these documents that we have. So stay with us. In the coming days, we'll serialize other aspects. Dennis, we have copies of the permits, yes, right? The permits that were issued to these 47
I mentioned that earlier,
companies.
well over 120 pages.
120 pages.
Each specifying who has got what permit at what time.
Super.
But let's put on record that these were just within the period of 2018 and 2019. If anything happened contrary to what we have here afterwards, we are unable to speak to. Early in the year, the president mentioned that there's no mining ongoing in any forest reserve. That was early this year. So we take that to be what it is, unless we are able to disprove that.
Super. Dennis, thank you. Dennis Poberi-Wadam, Suda Research, and then also planning, news planning. Appreciate your time as always, Dennis. And the coming days are going to be a lot more of him on Ghana Tonight. But President Akufo-Addo has nominated Gertrude Araba Isaba Tokono as Justice of the Supreme Court as a new Chief Justice to take over from Justice Kwesi Yeboah, who retires next month. We have a brief on her. Take a look.
President Akufo-Addo, in a letter to the chairman of the Council of State, indicated that Justice Gertrude Tokono, who has been a member of the judiciary for the last 19 years, is qualified and fit to discharge the functions of a Chief Justice. Born in Winneba in the Central Region on 11th September 1962, she attended Wesley Girls Senior High School for her O-level and Achimota School for her A-level certificate. She is an alumnus of the University of Ghana and graduated from the Ghana School of Law in 1986. In 2001, she obtained a postgraduate diploma in International Law and Organization from the International Institute of Social Studies. In 2011, she graduated from the Golden Gate University, USA, with an LLM in Intellectual Property Law. Justice Tokono was nominated to the Supreme Court of Ghana in November 2019 and sworn into office in December 2019. During her vetting, she shared her views on many subjects, including corruption.
I see different strains of behavior that fall into corruption. There are those that are purely criminal. Then there are those that are ethical. You are very right that everybody is pointing to the next person. So it's prevalent social behavior, and we all have to discuss it.
And this is going to be the third Chief Justice President Akufo-Addo is appointing, and two of them are women. Congratulations to her. On behalf of the rest of the team, thank you so much for staying with us here on Ghana Tonight. Join us same time tomorrow. We have a lot more exclusive detail on this show. I am Alfred Okanse. Have a good night.